morning, my digital tax evaders, sovereign stackers, and everyone still pretending that moving to Portugal is just about the wine. I'm Hank Hudson, coming to you live from San Francisco, California, where the government takes half your paycheck, your landlord takes the other half, and the only thing that's still free is unsolicited crypto advice. Now get ready, because today's episode is going to hit a little different. In just a bit, I'll be joined by Anil Patel, educator, author, and the man behind the Bitcoin Handbook. He's a guy who's been quietly onboarding the next wave of Bitcoiners, one brain cell at a time. We'll be joining with him in just a bit. And we'll also be talking about why Bitcoin education still sucks and why most schools won't touch it, and how we fix that before another generation grows up thinking CBDCs are just free Venmo. Then, because it is the middle of July and some of you are already fantasizing about fleeing your country, we're counting down the top 5 countries where you can legally dodge crypto taxes without ending up on a yacht with Duquan. So make sure to smash that like button like it's capital gains form you forgot to file, and follow RoxomTV and yours truly, Hank at RoxomTV, on every platform that hasn't shadow banned the word Bitcoin yet. We got a lot to cover on today's show, so let's get into it. All right, it's time for our deep dive. And today's guest, he's a rare talent in the Bitcoin world, someone who doesn't just understand the signal, but knows how to broadcast it to the masses. He takes the most complex ideas in economics, technology, and human behavior and distills them into visuals so clear, even your no-coiner cousin can finally get it. He's been praised by some of the sharpest minds in the space, from Preston Pysh to Saifedean Ammous, and his work is now helping onboard the next generation of Bitcoiners across the globe in over 10 languages. He's an educator, a creator, and an absolute force when it comes to communicating why Bitcoin matters. Please give a big blockchain report welcome to the author of the Bitcoin Handbook, Anil Patel. Anil, welcome to the show. We are so thrilled to have you, and so is our audience. How are you today?
I'm doing great, thanks, Hank. Thank you for having me. That's quite the introduction. Let me get my glasses so I look more intelligent than I actually am.
Well, I've read some of the book, and I think you're pretty intelligent with or without the glasses. We are just super stoked to have you here and talk shop, and I want to start from the beginning. Tell me, what sparked your curiosity about Bitcoin initially, and when did you start going down the old Bitcoin rabbit hole?
Okay, nice.
So it really started when I was getting poorer and poorer, and one day I decided I would like to not continually get poorer.
$60.
You want more than that?
Simple. You're just like,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like your orange pill moment. How did you, what turned you on to the whole scene?
Well, you know, it's just like everyone has their light bulb moment where they know something is wrong with the world, something is wrong with the incentives of the world, and you can't quite put your finger on it. And if you have the curiosity and the time and the patience, eventually you'll figure it out. And it all traces back to the money. Shock, I know.
Yes.
So when I made that connection, then you start looking for solutions. And we are insanely fortunate that we are alive during this very early period of time in Bitcoin's monetization. Generations will look back at us and think, holy shit, you know, you couldn't have had a better lottery ticket in life. So, you know, we get to do this. We get to actually, you know, teach Bitcoin to people. Whereas in the future, it will just be the money.
Absolutely. It kind of, I always like, what I always think about this time is it reminds me of how I used to be really sour about missing out on the .com boom in the late 90s and early 2000s. As I was like, oh man, if I was just born a little bit earlier, I could have been part of that. But I think we are part of the next big revolution monetarily right now. So like you said, it's exciting times, and we're certainly privileged to be a part of this space right now. I want to talk a little bit about you. You've become known for a really unique visual teaching style that you can see in your book. Where did that skill come from? Do you have a background as like a graphic designer, or were you just always a visual learner yourself and you decided that would be a great way to communicate the messages in your book?
Yeah, look, there's a lot of great writers in the Bitcoin space. There are a lot of great speakers. A lot of those avenues are already occupied, I guess. And early in my journey, I would see these diagrams that people would very hastily make and throw up on Reddit or Bitcoin Talk or other forums, and they would look like dog shit. No offense to the people who created them. And I thought maybe I could improve upon that just slightly, just enough. And they were still terrible. A lot of my work in the early days was I look back at it and it's disgusting. I'm embarrassed by it. But, you iterate over time. And Bitcoin is great at telling you what they actually think. So if you're able to take on feedback, not be offended by it and improve, over time, I got a bit better at communicating Bitcoin visually. And Bitcoin is taught around the world at hundreds of meetups. It's probably being talked about right now at a meetup somewhere in the world. And someone is trying to walk through some terribly designed slides, where it's like 20 bullet points, a diagram of how the Federal Reserve works, and it's just going over people's heads. They are not getting it at all. So if you can make their lives a bit easier by just giving them, hey, here are some very basic slides, this will make your life a lot easier. It will make your audience happier. So that's what I just started doing, was creating slide decks basically for myself, and then I would just open source them. And over time that evolved into other projects like courses and books.
That's amazing. Yeah, no, I mean, it's really helpful too, because you talk about like monetary or financial topics, and it can be really convoluted, especially if you're not innately in that space. And the graphics in your book really do a great job of helping illustrate those points for every layperson out there who's not already familiar with how financial systems work, and specifically Bitcoin. So it's really quite the boon for that. And it kind of begs the question for me: before you got into Bitcoin, what were you doing professionally? Like, what was the turning point that pushed you toward this Bitcoin path?
So I started out in the music industry. Specifically, I was working at large scale kind of festivals and shows, and you get a real sense of how crowds work. So how do they respond to stimuli? How do they move in unison? How are they controlled? And now this sounds a little dark and cynical, and I don't mean it that way. But from there, you kind of understand that, okay, if a government can force money on a population, firstly, they might not be aware of it. And secondly, most of them are just going to go with the flow and do what everyone around them is doing as well. And then after that, I realized, there's probably more to the world than this. So I did what everyone does when they're having their early midlife crisis, and I went to business school, and so I could further my indoctrination. And after that, again, you just keep realizing that there's something a bit off with the world. I worked for a startup. I worked in education. I got a taste of enough things to realize that there was something bigger going on behind the picture. And thankfully, I found it through luck. But yeah, go on.
I don't think it was luck at all, though. I mean, just hearing your background, it makes a lot of sense why your book is so great. It's because you have this experience with crowds and how to manage crowds and how to anticipate their needs and their wants. And it's very well done in your book that you're giving people information in a way that's really easy for them to understand and digest. But then you also have this background, you said, in education and business. So it seems like it all came together into this big, beautiful book about Bitcoin. And I mean, it's no surprise a lot of people out there call you one of the clearest communicators in the entire Bitcoin space. So it kind of seems like, or it begs the question, I should say, do you feel like that's something you kind of developed all over time through all these different career paths and journeys that you went through? Or is that something that's always kind of come naturally to you?
Yeah, I guess I'm not afraid to look dumb. And the best way to understand something is to try to either write about it or teach it. Mm-hmm. And if you can do those things, eventually you will get to a clearer and clearer explanation of whatever it is you're trying to understand. And when I first came into Bitcoin, everyone around me seemed like a genius. And, in hindsight, they actually were, because the people I was learning from were Pierre Rochard and Safe and Parker Lewis, Michael Goldstein, those folks. So you realize that if you want to get onto their level, like you got to do some serious work. So the book was really an exercise in going back and understanding all these first principles that you hear about, on podcasts, in other books, and working through them basically one by one. So the book is basically a collection of 50 concepts. Right. It's almost like an encyclopedia for understanding Bitcoin. And so, it was just an exercise in forcing myself to go through the process, to understand it. And then what I usually do when I'm learning about something is I just put it out there to see if it's useful for other people. I'm really grateful that other people have found the book helpful, but it was really just my own little side project. That's how it started.
No, I love that. And you mentioned you had the opportunity to learn from a lot of these people that are definitely like brilliant people in the space. I know you mentioned Pierre. We've had him on the show. I remember after talking to him, he was giving me all of these very complex, breakdowns. And I was just like, yes, I also love Bitcoin. Just because I was like, I didn't fully know how to respond to some of the stuff he was saying. But it's really a credit to you that you've done such a great job of distilling complex ideas into very simple visuals that anyone can understand. Is that kind of how you got the idea for the book? You were talking to all these people that are geniuses in the space, and you said you kind of felt a little like lost or maybe even intimidated at first from them, and you're like, hey, maybe I should break this down for people like me. Is that kind of how the idea for the book came together, or was it something else?
Yeah, that's exactly how it started. And there are probably people listening or out there who are thinking, hey, I'm going to write a book about Bitcoin too. And that's great. There should be way more books, because way more books will cater to a bigger audience, and that's better for Bitcoin adoption. But I didn't set out to try to write a book. I started writing a newsletter for myself, and over time, people kept bugging me to turn it into a book. So, it was completely, fortuitous that it ended up turning into a book. A publisher came on board and offered to help turn it into a book. So I did very little to become an author. It happened to me. And fortunately, it serves a niche in the kind of Bitcoin library that hadn't yet been tackled. So I would encourage anyone who's thinking about writing a book to look at where the gaps are in our kind of like Bitcoin canon and try to fill that gap,
Yeah, I mean, your book is really unique in that it pulls from a lot of different things. I mean, like economics, tech, psychology even. Like, how did you decide what to include and what to leave out? Because I'm sure you had a lot of these kind of shorter form pieces that sounds like you compiled together into this book. What was that process like of deciding what to keep and what to leave by the wayside?
Yeah, the main goal was there are a lot of very dense books out there. I wanted to keep this to under 100 pages. So it started with getting about the 100 most common concepts that Bitcoiners will come across when they're learning about Bitcoin or starting their journey, and then cutting that down, to about 50. And it really just came from what are the ones most useful to a no coiner or a pre-coiner? What's going to be most helpful? So it was less about my ego trying to sound smart of, hey, I know all these things, versus how are you actually going to get someone from point A to point B and do it responsibly, right? I want to do it in a way that's not going to send people adrift into like, shit coining or yield products or other avenues where they think they can outsmart this thing. So went really wide initially, and then it was just cutting till you left with like the bones of what's actually useful.
Yeah, no, it definitely seems like you got the real meat and potatoes still in there, and nothing else that's like too superfluous or anything, or it could be its own rabbit hole if you let someone go down it. Was your initial idea to make this book then for people just getting introduced into the Bitcoin space?
I think there's a lot of better intros books to Bitcoin. This is probably when you've already started your journey as like a reference book. But it should be accessible to anyone. You could be in your 80s, pick up this book, never having heard of Bitcoin, and still learn something from it and not be intimidated by it. Because that's the mistake I think a lot of Bitcoin education makes. is the intention isn't to be intimidating, but that's the way it comes off, because you're trying to explain something that's very abstract, very complex, and you're doing your best, but you're not meeting people where they are. And no one wants to feel dumb. That's what turns more people off than anything, I think, even more so than bear markets, is just Bitcoin makes a lot of people feel very stupid, and that's an uncomfortable feeling.
Absolutely. I mean, was that kind of the reason you decided to include all of these visuals in your storytelling process? Because it helps it feel like more accessible to people, especially when they're trying to retain these like complex frameworks and models. Was that kind of the idea behind all the great visuals that you included?
Yeah, I mean, in this day and age, of infinite scrolls, to catch someone's attention, yeah, big chunks of text probably won't do it. So, yeah, if you can explain something in a visual, I'll always opt for that first. And it also forces you to take away anything that's not necessary. There's no way to overcomplicate something if you have to sketch it out on something the size of a Post-it. You have to understand this thing. So, yeah, that was the goal.
Going through your process of creating all of these visuals for these oftentimes very complex topics, are there any that like stand out specifically from your book, or that like resonate really deeply with you after you created it? Like you're like, oh, that is a really great way to articulate this one thing as you went through this process of getting all of your visuals and illustrations for the book itself?
Yeah, there's this one concept in the book. It's called Gell-Mann Amnesia. The name's not that important, but the actual point of this concept is, if you're reading something, anything, a newspaper, a magazine, whatever, and say you're an expert in a certain field, let's say archery, and there's an article on archery, and you notice inconsistencies or fallacies, or clearly the person writing it hasn't understood what you understand. And a lot of Bitcoiners, you understand Bitcoin quite well, and when you're reading, say, mainstream news, and you realize that they're not doing a great job of accurately explaining what Bitcoin is, well, then you should probably disregard everything else they write, because they're going to be doing the same disservice to any other topic they cover if they're doing it in the same way. So this particular concept, it just helps simplify your world a lot in terms of your information diet, in terms of what you give your attention to, in terms of who you trust to give you information. Your life will get a lot simpler. You will consume a lot less, and you'll consume a lot less garbage if you take that principle to heart. So that was the one that was kind of a bit of a mind blow moment for me.
It sounds like it. And I bet there was we both know the Bitcoin rabbit hole, it goes down very deep. So it begs the question, were there any ideas that you thought were just too complex or too, I don't even know, maybe controversial to include in the Bitcoin Handbook, and you're like, I'll save that for another one?
Yeah, look, you don't want to turn off too many people early on their journey. Now it's changing obviously today, but a few years ago when the book came out, we still looked like those tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists, whatever you want to call it. So doing something or presenting information in a way that is very neutral, factual, verifiable, that's going to give you more credibility. And then people are more likely to take you seriously. But if you come out of the gates, screaming about the Fed and going really hard on inflation, you've lost your audience. They're gone, right? So start small, be clear, be concise. And over time, if everything you've said continues to be accurate or true, that's how you build trust with someone. That's how someone continues to listen to you.
Yeah, no, it kind of reminds me of like approaching a squirrel. You can't do it too fast. You're going to freak it out and scare it away. You just got to kind of inch to it, give them a little breadcrumb. You guys can kind of bond and get a little trust over. And once you realize it's hey, this is good stuff, you get a little closer rather than just going, like you said, full tinfoil hat out the jump. And people are going to be like, I can't buy into what this guy's selling. So I think you definitely took the right approach.
And what you want to do with a squirrel is you
want
want to take 2% of its nuts every year and tell them that if you don't do that, the economy will crash and there'll be no nuts for anyone. So, yeah.
Maybe save that one for the next book, but I like where you're headed with it. You mentioned you had the opportunity to learn from some really brilliant people in the space. Thinkers like, I think you said, Saifuddin Ammous, I think I read it was like Gigi and Jeff Booth. What kind of effect did those people have on the structure or the ideas that you decided to put in the book itself?
If you're familiar with the idea that you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with, which I believe is completely true, then you want to be really intentional about who those 5 people are. And when you start learning about Bitcoin, you want to kind of pick the 5 voices or educators who you're going to let teach you. Because, when you're learning about Bitcoin, there's no clear path. You're curating your own educational experience. You're almost like picking your own mentors. And so I was just super lucky to find the signal early on in my journey. And I avoided a lot of pain and pitfalls that a lot of people go through. So, like people like Jeff Booth, Gigi, Preston, Pierre, Parker, they are all very high integrity people. You don't see them making wild price predictions. They're not just trying to reach the biggest audience. They're genuinely trying to live a principled life. And if you can find those people and then try to model those people, your life's just going to be a lot easier. So, now I hope to put out material that is in line with that. So it's not, I'm not going to get the biggest following. I'm not going to get 1 million YouTube viewers, but I can stand by everything I've said, So that's ultimately the goal for me is how do you maintain integrity over time?
Yeah, I think that's a great path, to follow, and I think the results have kind of spoke for themselves, right? Your book is available in like 10 languages now. Was that always part of the plan, or did the demand surprise you and you just had to, to put it out there in different languages for those people as well?
Yeah, well, that's the cool thing about Bitcoiners. A lot of them have this innate need to build and make stuff. They don't want to just, be consuming all the time. They want to get involved and find ways to do that. And, I wanted to make the book free to download. The digital version has always been free. And enough people in their local communities wanted to create something for their local language. So it just evolved organically over time, where someone would reach out and say, hey, I would love to have a copy of this in German. And then I would say, well, I don't speak German. And they would say a week later, here, I made it. It's now in German. And it's just amazing. It's just absolutely amazing that Bitcoiners would put in all this work to help educate their, people in their native tongue. So again, I did nothing. A huge number of very generous, intelligent Bitcoiners pretty much took care of the translation process for me. And now, it's out in, a number of languages, and it just keeps growing.
That's incredible. Is it the same format? It's just the text is different, or do they like recreate your graphics and each book looks a little differently, or do they all look the same as the original one, just the languages are different?
Yeah. Very consistent, pretty much identical.
Yeah.
I think the Czech version maybe has a different cover. So every, translated version has its own little spin on it, but in most cases it's pretty much the same. Yeah.
Very cool. And I read that you had the opportunity to collaborate with some pretty cool companies. We're talking like Swan, Unchained, and even Bitcoin Magazine. How did those companies and collaborating with them kind of shape your own perspective and Bitcoin education and the best way to kind of go about it when you wrote the book?
Yeah, so Bitcoin education is important to individuals, but it's also important to every company offering any kind of Bitcoin related service. Whether you're in media, whether you're in hardware, whether you're in software, whatever it may be, you're educating your customers throughout that whole process. So early on, I was putting a lot of my education materials up on Twitter. And over time, I'd built this portfolio where companies would start reaching out to say, hey, we really like this. Could you do this particular thing, but for our customers? So I would encourage anyone out there who wants to work in Bitcoin or get a job in the Bitcoin ecosystem is, whatever skill it is that you have or want to develop, just start doing that publicly until you build up enough of a portfolio. And then it's very easy to demonstrate to companies if you're applying to jobs or whatnot, like, hey, here's what I've done. So like show your work, right? Proof of work.
Right.
So yeah, the more material I would produce and create, the more people that would come knocking, usually in bull markets, but that's fine. And yeah, I got to see the inside of a lot of great Bitcoin companies, which are full of very genuine, intelligent, and capable individuals. So once again, I did nothing. It all just came to me. I think you're probably seeing a pattern here. So yeah, put in some work, make it free to the world.
Humble man.
Yeah.
And the world has responded, and they said, we like it, and we want more in different languages. So it seems like you're doing a great thing. And you actually have another book that you're writing in the midst right now. It's about Michael Saylor. Is that right?
Yes. So in
What's that
the
about?
curation process, so I do a lot of educational curation, and over the years, I realized that a huge proportion of material was coming from one man, and that man was Michael Saylor. And I think the reason is he's a very good communicator, but he's also puts his money where his mouth is, like quite literally. So people know he means what he says because he's demonstrating alignment between his words and his actions. So just noticing how people responded to him when he writes a tweet, when he speaks at a conference, when he goes on a podcast, it just seemed like a very obvious thing to turn a lot of his words into a book. And very selfishly, it's really because I want to own that book. I just make stuff that I wish existed. So the book is just taking a lot of his, a lot of his speeches, interviews, tweets, reformatting them into a book that will be out later this year. And the digital version will be completely free for anyone.
That's amazing. Well, that's what they always say, right? Like, create the thing that you would want for yourself. For instance, like with us, it's like, well, what's the show I would want to watch if I'm interested in Bitcoin, but I don't, I want things to be a little bit of a different flavor than what's already out there. So I totally feel you on that one. And as a prominent Bitcoin creator and educator, I'd be curious, do you see more value in educating individuals about Bitcoin or institutions when it comes to actually adopting Bitcoin?
Yeah, it depends. I mean, at an individual level, I think everyone should work on educating the people they love, because you will want those people to hold the hardest money and not be, taken advantage of by the system. So that's number one. If you're educating individuals, you're usually doing it to the people you care about because you want them personally to understand this and how their world is about to change. Now, when it comes to educating institutions or organizations, that can be really useful if you want to have the greatest impact, because sometimes it can be just changing one person's mind within an organization, and then they are going to influence an even wider group. So you're always kind of thinking about the trade-offs between your time and the impact it's going to have. But it all comes down to, is the person you're speaking to or the organization you're speaking to, are they receptive to your message? Because for a very long time, we were banging up against a brick wall trying to convince people. And now the table is finally turned where there are enough people hungry to understand this, where your energy is better spent educating people who want to learn about this rather than trying to force something down their throat. So our lives are getting a lot easier in that regard, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. And sometimes just educating the individual can lead to educating tons of institutions. And Michael Saylor is kind of an example of that. Like, he was an anti-Bitcoin guy until about 2020, when he finally took the time to educate himself. And now he's the orange pillar of all orange pillars. He is the Morpheus holding out his hand, presenting us this other option of reality. So I really appreciate your answer on that. Do you think, as someone who's in the Bitcoin creative and educational space, is Bitcoin education currently winning the battle of the narratives right now, or are we still kind of early in that fight?
Number will keep going up, and that is what will win the ultimate battle. Now, how many people come along for that ride and get to benefit from that? I think that's what education can decide or impact. So, again, depends what kind of fight you're looking at. But ultimately, it just comes down to stack sats, stay humble. A lot of people won't find that useful information because they want to get rich, they want a certain lifestyle, and that's just not going to be compatible with the monetization of hard money, which is a slow, painful process. What you want to do is the heavy lifting very early on to understand Bitcoin, and then just be patient, know what you own, and like the future will take care of itself. Because that's the whole point of understanding all the concepts that I put into this book, is that once you do understand them, there is no debate about this. The path has already been set. The only thing that's going to change is maybe like the speed and how bumpy that journey is. So you have to tune out the noise. Like, look, big picture, long term. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, oftentimes you'll see it with all these meme coin garbage. People are looking for these high alpha plays. But truly, I mean, the best conversion therapy, at least initially, is number go up. And then once people keep seeing that, it increases the credibility of Bitcoin in the financial space. And then they start turning to people like you to actually educate themselves as to why why does orange pill number always seem to go up? And you're really like a catalyst in that space. So we certainly appreciate all of your efforts. And that brings me kind of my next question here. As someone who is such an influential figure in helping people understand Bitcoin and kind of orange pill themselves with the proper education, how do you feel about Bitcoin's branding right now? Like, is the orange pill message already working, or is there something we could be doing differently to better communicate all of the advantages Bitcoin has in today's financial system as we move into the future?
So everything we do to educate or market or brand Bitcoin is completely overshadowed by the jobs that central banks are already doing for us. I think they are the best marketing department imaginable for Bitcoin, because it's basically two sides, and you have to pick a side. Not making a choice or picking a side is still picking a side. And the deeper and deeper we go down into this fiat debt trap, the clearer and clearer the answer becomes. And the more desperate one side will get in convincing everyone else that everything is fine, things are working as planned, we know what we're doing. Mask off moment. So I could write 100 books, I could teach 100 workshops. One tweet from the European Central Bank will do far more for Bitcoin than I ever will.
Well, you say that, but hey, if it's that one person at the central bank that read the Bitcoin Handbook and then gets orange pilled, you could then, whether you know it or not, be catalyst for much bigger movements that are happening. And we just don't know, right? But it's stuff like that you're putting out there that allows that to happen.
Yeah, fair. Appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, no. And kind of in that same train of thought, what is your take on the big wave of institutional adoption that we've seen, especially as of late? Do you feel that it's a net positive for Bitcoin because it's getting the word out there and people are starting to embrace it in a very different way than we had ever seen before? Or does it kind of risk diluting some of the core values that Bitcoin was kind of built on to begin with?
So you had Pierre on your show, right?
Yeah.
He wrote some amazing essays over 10 years ago now, laying out exactly what would eventually happen. Now, if you're a Bitcoiner, the only thing Bitcoiners fundamentally agree on are the rules of Bitcoin. As long as you're following the rules, you are free to do as you please with Bitcoin. You want to, self-custody it? Great, that's your choice. You want to, put other information onto the Bitcoin blockchain? Fine, as long as it's a valid transaction, go for it. The institutional piece was always going to happen if Bitcoin was successful. There's no way you have an asset appreciating at this rate and Wall Street doesn't take notice and want in on the action or try to find a way to beat Bitcoin or, capture Bitcoin, whatever you want to call it. It was always going to happen. But if you're an individual and you have Bitcoin in cold storage and self-custody, people can do as they please. It's not going to affect you materially in the long term. So the adoption of Bitcoin by TradFi is just inevitable. And I ultimately think it's not a bad thing. It will only make your Bitcoin more valuable, which will enable you to do more with your life, with your family, focus on your craft. So, yeah, if you read those essays early on, you knew what was going to happen. You understood what the future would be, and we're just seeing it play out now.
Absolutely. Well, Anil, we got one more question for you. I know you got a busy day, so we'll let you go. This one is a little one for me that I'm particularly interested in. I'd be curious as to what your perspective is on the current state of Bitcoin content that's out there. Are we oversaturated currently, or are we still lacking quality content and education, or is there room for new types of content and education, kind of like what we're trying to do at Roxom? What are your thoughts?
I think it's fantastic. I think there should be more educators doing more educating across more mediums, more formats, more content. And that's the beauty of Bitcoin, an open source protocol. Everyone is welcome to do with it as they please. And, if 1 billion people maybe one day will come to understand, appreciate, and possess Bitcoin, we are not even close to saturation point on marketing, education, products and services. So now is a great time to build a business around education, to provide quality content, to build long-term relationships with people by producing stuff that is timeless and continue to maintain high integrity. So yeah, more education, more educators, more content.
Exactly the answer I was hoping you'd say. I love it, Anil. Before I let you go, I'm sure there's people in our audience out there that are saying, listen, I need to get my hands on a copy of the Bitcoin Handbook, and maybe there's a mailing list or something that they can sign up for when your next book releases. Where can I send our audience that's interested in learning more about you and all of the great content that you're putting out to the world?
Yeah, head to my Twitter X handle. It's Anil said so. And if you do, in my bio, there are links to download the book for free. All of my presentations are free. If you want to get on the mailing list to get an early copy of the Treasury of Saylor, you can do that as well. But that is where you will find me most of the time. If not, I'm at a lot of conferences. Come say hi. Always happy to chat.
Amazing. Well, Anil, I want to say thank you so much for your time and joining us in the Blockchain Report today. You are truly such a valuable member of this space and of this community, and we really appreciate all the efforts you've already made to help spread the gospel of Bitcoin, and we really can't wait to see all of the amazing things that you're going to be bringing to us next. Thank you so much for your time today.
Hank, thanks for the invite. Congrats on everything you guys are doing at Roxom. Keep it up. It's awesome. I'm loving it.
Amazing. Thank you. And when you release that book, you give us a call. We'll help launch it on the show. I want everybody to read it because I know I'm going to be. So I want to make sure no one's left out. Thanks again, Anil. It was a pleasure.
Cheers.
Cheers. All right, welcome back. It's time for some blockchain without borders. So let's see what's going on in other parts of the world, specifically Kazakhstan, as they're officially flirting with Bitcoin. And no, this isn't another one of those minor migration stories. We're talking about actual sovereign reserves. According to a local press conference, Timur Selimunov, head of Kazakhstan's national bank, said they're actively considering putting national funds like gold and foreign currency reserves into digital assets, which means that Bitcoin could soon be part of Kazakhstan's rainy day fund. Now, Selimunov said that they're looking at aggressive strategies for higher investment income, and crypto's now on the short list. They're studying Norway's fund, America's fund, and Middle Eastern funds, all of which, by the way, have dabbled in crypto, ETFs, or crypto-related equities. The plan isn't finalized yet, but they're not brushing it off just yet either. And yes, Kazakhstan already has some street cred. They control about 13% of the global Bitcoin hash rate, and they've seized a decent stash of crypto from some bad actors. Now they're thinking of setting up a separate reserve for that confiscated crypto, because nothing says modern central bank quite like a digital stash labeled "from the cartel, but with love." Now, President Donald Trump's Bitcoin reserve may have kicked off the global dominoes. Bhutan was next. Now it's Kazakhstan's turn. Now, let's be honest, when emerging economies start treating Bitcoin like a central bank reserve asset, you know the game has changed. Sure, Selimunov called crypto volatile, but he also called it an opportunity. And Bitcoin doesn't care who you are, king, president, or a Kazakh banker. If you've got capital to preserve, it's got blocks to offer. And in other news, looking to dodge taxes and legally flex your crypto gains? Well, here are the 5 countries in 2025 where Bitcoin is tax-free. And yes, Germany somehow made the list. First up, we got the Cayman Islands. No personal income tax, no capital gains tax, no corporate tax. If it has tax in the name, they've deleted it. Now, whether you're trading, staking, or running a DeFi fund from your beachside cabana, it's all untaxed. And starting in April of 2025, so just a few months ago, they rolled out a fully licensed framework under the Virtual Asset Service Providers Act. So it's not just tax-free, it's compliant too. That's right. Regulation without the headache and no taxes to boot. The Cayman dollar is pegged to the US dollar. The legal system runs on English common law, and it's packed with friendly expats and oceanfront Wi-Fi. Next up, we got the United Arab Emirates, or the UAE. Their crypto tax rate, also 0. In all 7 Emirates, including Dubai and Abu Dhabi, there's no income tax and no capital gains tax on digital assets. You can trade, stake, mine, or sell crypto tax-free, baby. Regulators like Dubai's VARA and Abu Dhabi's FSRA actually exist to help. Startups, VCs, and even Layer 1 builders have a legal sandbox to play in. They've got the licensing, the infrastructure, and the visa perks. Oh, and one more thing. 25.3% of UAE residents reportedly own crypto. Dubai scored a 98.4 out of 100 on crypto obsession. So, yeah, they're all in. Next up, in third place, we got El Salvador, still the only country where Bitcoin is legal tender and fully tax exempt. Thanks to its digital assets law, there's no capital gains tax or income tax on Bitcoin. Spend it, hodl it, trade it. Uncle Naib's not coming for your stack anytime soon. They're building a Bitcoin city, in fact, a geothermal-powered crypto metropolis with no income, property, or capital gains taxes. Even Tether is moving its HQ there, as they did earlier this year. So things are happening. El Salvador, baby. Next up, we have Germany. Yes, the Germans. If you hold your Bitcoin for 12 months or more, it becomes tax-free. Sell it, swap it, buy a sausage with it, no taxes owed. Even short-term trades under €1,000 per year are exempt, which is shockingly chill for the European Union. Long-term hodlers, this is your loophole. Germany, check them out. And last but not least, we have Portugal coming in at number 5, still one of Europe's strongest tax-free crypto jurisdictions. You hold crypto longer than a year? Taxes are free, none. If you locked in the non-habitual resident program before the March 31st, 2025 cutoff, you even got more perks, including tax exempt on foreign income and a flat 20% domestic income tax rate. Now, to be clear, short-term gains under 1 year are taxed at 28%. And staking your crypto as a business, well, that gets taxed too. But for long-term investors and expats looking for sunshine and solvency, Portugal's still a top-tier crypto escape hatch. So we got Cayman Islands, the UAE, El Salvador, Germany, and Portugal. Still your best bets in 2025. But hey, let's not get lazy. Residency rules and compliance still apply. And as El Salvador's IMF talks remind us, tax havens can change and fast. But for now, these 5 places are still letting your Bitcoin gains run free and wild.
Hey, Hank, I got a question for you.
Oh, I love questions. What do you got, Victor?
If you had to live in one of these countries, or I guess any of these, how would you rank them?
Oh, man, that is a great question. I mean, I have a special place in my heart for Portugal. Like, I'm not a big day trader, and I get the no capital gains tax after a year. And if anybody's ever been to Lisbon, it's just San Francisco, but prettier. I think Portugal might be my number 1. I am of the German background, so I'd probably like fit in really well to Germany, but I don't know if I'm ready to join their authoritarian regime of sorts. Maybe that was the past. I don't know. Not too keen on Germany. I love Berlin, but I don't think I want to live there.
So
I don't know a ton.
number 1 is Portugal?
What's that? Portugal's number 1.
Okay.
Yeah, Portugal's the best. And it's like pretty cheap, I think. Maybe Germany 2. El Salvador, that whole prison thing kind of scares me. I think I'm going to stay away from that. I know very little about the Cayman Islands, but I hear the United Arab Emirates are awesome. So I'm thinking it's Portugal, Germany, UAE, Cayman, and then Bukele and I can be friends. But that's my least favorite option, I think. What about you?
Nice.
What are you thinking?
Portugal is probably my first. And then
Portugal's nice.
Germany, I've never been, but I feel like their regime
The
is,
Germans are
part
very
of the
nice
past.
now. Yeah, they're very nice today, and they're very sorry.
My college roommate was German, and he was pretty cool. So
Oh, is it good?
yeah, they have pretty fast freeways apparently. So
The Autobahn's legit, man. I've been on it. Oof.
yeah. Oh no. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know about the UAE. They're not LGBTQ friendly that I know of.
It is super far, too.
Yeah. And the Cayman Islands, I think I'd want to visit. I don't know about me living in an island that just,
Yeah.
like, I don't know. But yeah,
Like hurricanes and stuff.
I think
man.
Portugal for the win here. Just based off
Yeah.
of feels.
Yeah, Portugal's
not
great.
like anything that to do with
Feels.
crypto.
Yeah, Portugal's got major feels, man. They have an exact replica of the Golden Gate Bridge in Portugal. It's called, I think, like the April 25th or April 21st bridge. It's an exact replica, and right next to it is an exact replica of the Christ the Redeemer statue
Nice.
from Brazil. It's wild. They have 2 other famous, landmarks from other countries.
Yeah.
They just decided to rebuild.
So kind of like
They're
what
exact
Vegas
copies.
does in the
It's
Strip, right? With the Eiffel Tower and other stuff.
Right. But these are like exact replicas based on size.
Wow.
It's wild. And apparently no capital gains tax after you're on crypto stuff. So Portugal, I think we got our answer.
Nice,
I need
nice.
to go back.
All right,
Right
Hank,
there.
let's go to
All
a
right, we're
break.
taking a break.
Yep.
Taking a break. We'll be right back. More Blockchain Report coming up after this. All right, welcome back. It's game time. I love game time. We're talking about what's up with the video game industry. It's pretty close to crypto. Apparently, they're going to have crypto in the new Grand Theft Auto, so it's coming. Nonetheless, the video game industry currently, well, they're in a bit of a slump. All right, layoffs, studio closures, and revenue declines have plagued the space since back in 2022. So the question is, who's to blame for all this? Well, according to developers, it's the investors. New survey data from the Game Developer Collective shows 64% of developers blame unreasonable investor expectations as the main cause of the downturn. Another 60% blamed general mismanagement. 43% cited the sky-high development costs, and somewhere a venture capitalist is screaming into a Patagonia vest. Not everyone agrees with the developer consensus. Jack Solomon, who's the CEO of Midsummer, well, he pushed back. He said VC funding gives developers upfront cash with no milestones, no daily interference, and full creative freedom. But yes, you are expected to make a transformational game and not just a good one. That's the deal. Jason Della Rocca of Griffin Gaming Partners called it the complete reverse. He said market conditions are driving investor expectations and not the other way around. Devin Reimer, CEO of Astrobeam and co-founder of Alchemy Labs, added nuance. He said platform funding has collapsed, publisher money has dried up, and investors are propping up what's left. He acknowledged a mismatch between VC expectations and how game studios actually operate. Games typically take multiple releases to find a hit. VCs, well, they want the whole company. Publishers, they just want one game. And one game is easier to fund. Despite the finger pointing, there's a sliver of optimism here, as in 2025, 30% of studios reported receiving funding, about the same as 2024, but fewer said it was harder to raise capital this year. Still, seed funding is faring better than Series A and beyond. Valuations are high, exit events are rare, and investors are cautious. Reimer believes the solution might be to fund at least the first 2 games from a studio, not just one. That gives a real shot at getting a hit. But the problem? Upfront costs are really high and capital is still pretty scarce. So while developers blame investors and investors blame the market, one thing is clear: neither side has a reset button. Well, that is a wrap for today's episode of the Blockchain Report, my every people. As always, thank you for tuning in. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe to RoxomTV and me at Hank at RoxomTV on all platforms that haven't banned monetary freedom yet. And we'll see you guys next time with more crypto chaos right here on the Blockchain Report. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Adios.